Welcome to SpanReads, not your typical rereads podcast, a 17 shard series where we reread Brandon's works and are giant nerds about it. Today we are talking about Cytonic. Joining me is Jessie.
Hello, I'm Lady Lameness.
Ian.
Hey, I'm a writer.
Eric.
Hey, I'm Chaos.
And I'm Mish, or firstRainbowRose. As this is the last available book in this series, we will be doing full spoilers for these episodes. As such, this is a warning to our viewers and listeners that there will be full spoilers for all Skyward novels except Defiant from this point forward. So for this episode, we are talking about the lore.
This is a lore book.
This is very much a lore book.
Yes,
Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of want to talk about the Proto-Delver.
Okay, let's start there.
So
Chronologically, that's the first thing.
that is true. So we learn in the Path of Elders, like the humans and the Urdale Cytonics, they start meeting in the nowhere, but then they eventually disappear. And it's because there was an epic fight between a bunch of the Cytonics and a Delver-like entity that's basically a Delver, but there's only one of it. And that caused all the Cytonics to die, I guess. They all...
Yeah, they died during the fight.
Yeah. And so this has been a big mystery to me as to what's going on. But on a reread, we have more information
I know it's
about
the exact same thing.
Yes. Because as soon as we see Jason bring the AI into the nowhere, there's some very weird lines. Like he knows, he's read stories that the nowhere exists, and it's like, oh wow, this is actually a thing. That's crazy. And that there are ancient human Cytonics, because he thought he was the first one, when that is not the case. And he says, if the accounts are true, you can do more, talking to his AI. I brought you here to this place. Do you sense anything different? Do you feel? And later he says, B, it's possible. They said it was possible. So who's they? That's weird. Bonkers.
Not the thing I noticed.
Oh, okay. Well, so in chapter 45, in the last Path of Elders thing, it says he made us with his deceased wife's voice and memories. Those are returning to me now, though for the longest time I had forgotten them. Jason was disappointed with how lifeless the AI was, but later he discovered what happened to AIs in the nowhere. He knew why none of the other species, even those advanced enough to have them, ever used artificial intelligences. Because of things that had happened in the past, but he didn't care. He came here. I think I can only assume that the Proto-Delver was also an AI, and that is propagated stories of this, and presumably it's just a single Delver because whatever happenstance of this Proto-Delver just didn't lead to this AI copying itself thousands of times.
There's also a line from chapter 24 describing the Proto-Delver of like a beast raised by an alien species who had technological marvels.
Yep, that's true. Yep.
Yeah.
So I think it was just an AI. It's like whatever species this was, like reached like computers and AI, while like most of the rest of the galaxy was still fairly primitive. And so they made an AI, took it into the nowhere. It's like, oops.
Yeah.
It became a monster.
I just didn't realize this at all earlier.
Same thing from chapter 24 later on. It says something dark, something rising from the blackness, but with a set of piercing white eyes.
Yep. It's a very similar Delver evolution, and I just think the circumstance is different, and probably that Delver's motivations are very different, right? Because these Delvers, as I'm sure we'll talk about, exert like this weird pressure on the nowhere of causing people to forget things because they wanted to forget things, right? So that was not the case in the past. So this Delver had different properties, probably manifested differently in the somewhere, but there's also similarities.
It kind of comes across like the Delvers we have now, they just want to stay in stasis. Like they don't want things to change. Whereas maybe the Delver in the past wasn't like that and was actively doing things instead.
I think that's very plausible. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because it's very clear. Like the current Delvers, like, are primarily motivated by the loss of Jason.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Like Mbot, also apparently a Delver-like entity now, not motivated by the death of Jason. So like,
yes.
Yeah.
completely different.
I do think though that this proto-Delver is different to what Doomslug is mentioning.
Yes.
About why they evolved to be able to hide. Specifically because she says a type of creature from her home planet, which sounds like it's something that is organic to the planet, not something that was built and then became sapient.
Yes.
Which is very interesting that we have like a proto-Delver to the Delvers and then kind of a separate thing that is also similar but terrifying.
Yeah.
Like we kind of have three things at this point.
Well, I wouldn't count like the proto Delver to be a different thing from the current Delvers. Like I think they all operate on the same. They're all the same thing. It's just like the current Delvers are making choices that the proto Delver didn't. Like I think
guess that's why I'm counting them differently. Is because they are making different choices. So they are, in my mind, different entities. Even if they are made of the same thing. Like, you have multiple humans, but they do different things.
Okay. I'm counting them as the same because they're basically both humans. They're not like a different kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that's fair. We're just looking at it from different angles.
Yeah. Whereas, like, I think what the Tanx evolved to hide from, like, completely different thing, not related at all.
All right.
Yeah.
Just maybe with some Cytonic thing.
Reminds me more of Six of the Dusk, where it's like, there's a lot of like mental based things and things that track based on minds, and you want an AVR that hides your mind from being tracked.
Sure.
So I think the Tanx and whatever that thing is like evolved together, and it's just separate from Delvers. It just so happens that the traits evolved to hide from those things also work on the Delvers.
Yeah. I need everyone to know that a few days ago, Jess is just talking to me. Weren't we like, we were driving, right?
We were driving, yeah.
And you just said, do you ever think about how the slugs evolved to hide against this mysterious entity, and the Delvers are more terrifying version of those? I think about that a lot. Like this is like basically
all the time. The first time I read this book, that line jumped out to me like really clearly, and I never stopped thinking about it because it seems like it doesn't seem like a throwaway line. It seems like Brandon has put that in there specifically to maybe explore in the future.
Yeah.
Particularly because we're getting all the stuff with Path of Elders of, there was actually a proto-Delver. And that does seem like a mystery that's being presented that we haven't got answers to yet. It's like, why was there a proto-Delver? Where did it come from? Like, what happened with it? And the creature on Cambry kind of comes across the same to me. And I've never stopped being able to think about that.
I do wonder if the Tanx homeworld is actually Cambry.
I'm not actually sure if it is. I think that might actually be superiority propaganda, but at least as far as what we have been told.
Yeah, because I'd be willing to bet that the Tanx homeworld has a lot of nowhere portals on it, which is why like they as a species like developed
that's probably
these
true,
abilities.
Yeah.
So I wonder if a lot more of the species on whatever planet that is also have interact with Cytonics in a different way.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
One more thing on the Delvers and like AI. there's a comments of people being afraid of what happened with AI in the past. I don't think that is specifically referring to the Proto-Delver.
Interesting.
Because I think that's very ancient history. I don't think the Cytonics at the time, all died out. True. Except for the one we see. And two, I don't think their civilizations were advanced enough to have any comprehension of what AI are. But I do think there were experiments in the more recent past where AI became sapient. People were like, that's weird, we don't like that, and like killed the AI before they got a chance to become Delvers.
Yeah, I could see that.
That Jason line is weird, though. Yeah, I guess that's possible.
I don't think Jason would have done what he did if he knew, like, I am going to try and resurrect my wife, basically, in AI form. If there was a chance of like, oh yeah, I'm going to resurrect my wife in this AI form, and maybe she'll turn into an evil monster that will destroy all the universe.
That is a fair point, because his goal is to resurrect his dead wife and not create a eldritch monstrosity, for sure.
And also, people have no concept of what the Delvers are, where it's like, if they knew AI became Delvers, they would know the Delvers are AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair.
I guess I just am wondering why, if other AIs became sapient, why didn't they just become Delver-like things? You know? Like, maybe you could destroy them early enough, but we know that if they can figure out how to get free of their housing, they're good, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think they just got... But Mbot was only able to do it after seeing Chet do it.
Yeah.
So it may not be an easy thing to just figure out.
Yeah. Potentially. So I guess the only logical thing there would be that the other people just destroyed those AIs before that happened, I guess.
Oh, and also, one more thing.
Okay.
The ancient human Cytonic we see, because Spencer asks how they defeated the Proto-Delver, and it's like, we made it real.
Yep.
Like, which... And Spencer doesn't know what that means. It's like, no, like they pulled it into the somewhere. They had it manifest a body and presumably killed that body.
Yeah.
The other thing in the same paragraph that I'm finding very interesting is where she says, those who did know how were consumed. Like, okay. So... knowing that Spencer was able to fuse with Chet makes me kind of wonder whether something similar might have happened, where the way to defeat the Delvers was to make them real by sacrificing Cytonics.
I am really liking the idea, though, that this could be some AI thing, but it just had very different motivations. I'm really liking that.
I have an out-of-the-box crack theory that I do not believe, but I'm still going to say.
Let's do it.
What if these ancient Cytonics sacrificed themselves to make this Proto-Delver real, and it popped out on the Tanx homeworld and is actually the thing? It became a real creature and like had kids, and that's what the Tanx evolved next to. I don't like that theory.
I also have a kind of a crack theory, but it's more to do with the Tanx than anything.
Perfect.
What if instead of their homeworld being in the somewhere, they actually just evolved in the nowhere and are able to go through the portals very easily? And the thing that the creature that they evolved to hide from was the Proto-Delver.
These are some good
crack theories.
These are good crack theories. And the Proto-Delver, that's what I think about. Like 100 different races. Yes.
This is something we are interested in. I leave that to you to interact with or not.
Yes. Speaking of slugs, I had completely forgotten that this book just objectively answers the question, that we've had in Starsight, yeah, the Delvers, they just hide from the Delvers, and the screaming doesn't matter. And I read for the hyper jumping, which is honestly does not actually fit with the Spence's description of how the hyper jumping works. It's just objectively not. I grabbed the 2 paragraphs. Spencer literally thinks the Delvers are looking at the source of the scream. No explanation of like, ooh, hiding the ship. Nothing. It's just, now it's looking at the scream. And so I think that's incongruous, but I guess that is the real answer. Is the Tanx are good at hiding from the Delvers.
I still think that my theory from, I think it was either the Starsight episodes or the Skyward Flight episodes, is that they're just torturing a different slug to cause a distraction so that the hyper slug can just jump the weights and measure.
Yeah.
And I know that the hyper slugs can hide anyway, but maybe if they're transporting something else, that thing that they're transporting can't hide as well.
See, you had another theory that just the screaming's just a consequence of the torture and just totally irrelevant, and I think that's a little more likely.
Yeah, that as well. Yeah.
So forget whatever I said where I didn't think that made sense, but that this book just straight up says that. So I think the screaming is just caused from the torture, and Spencer's just wrong, and Brandon just wrote it confusingly to make us just all confused. Okay.
Or he didn't fully understand how it worked at the time.
That's probably more accurate, for sure. Yeah.
Unreliable narrator.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Spencer got it wrong. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's definitely what happened. Okay. Anyway, I'm glad to have an answer about it, but it's so inconsistent. Whatever. Fine. Where do we want to go from here? The Tanx and the prototype were the main thing I wanted to talk about.
I kind of want to talk about the ability for Delver entities to affect the Nowhere.
Yeah, let's talk about that, and that leads into like talking about the Nowhere. Yeah,
because we learn a lot about the Nowhere in this book. We learn everything about the Nowhere in this book.
True.
Which is, and fairly early on, we learned that, hey, if you spend a lot of time here by yourself, you forget everything, which is terrifying. And then we interact with the ancient human Cytonic who fought the Proto-Delver. Spencer asks, like, how did you retain your memories while here? And the ancient Cytonic was like, well, because you do. It's like, forgetting is not a thing here.
Yes.
Because it wasn't. I guess because there's so Delver entities, including more than just the Delvers, are beings of the Nowhere, and so their collective perception affects how it works, maybe. And their desire to forget everything from the past makes that a law of the Nowhere.
And I think it's like an extreme Cytonic ability of theirs as well, kind of.
Oh yeah, I guess that's
right, because they literally, the AIs become Cytonic being in the Nowhere.
So it's not so much the Nowhere isn't making people forget, it's the Delvers themselves, like their latent Cytonic
I don't think it's
force.
Like, they're not intentionally doing it because they don't care about any of those things. And honestly, before Spencer did this, they didn't think the buzzing were people, right? But it's just their desire. They want to forget things. That is the most important thing to them. And so they are exerting like this Cytonic pressure that affects everything, I think.
I wonder if this ties into the Cytonic power of making people see other things, like
the
with
illusion
Chaser.
ones.
And it's just that in this case, the Delvers want to forget everything, so they're forcing that on people instead of it being like a visual illusion.
Because there's also the line about the illusion is that in the somewhere, it only affects Cytonics, but in the Nowhere, it affects everyone.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, the Delvers like Jorgen can break the rules of Cytonics and like sense non-Cytonics with his like communication, that's non-standard, right? Like most Cytonics wouldn't be able to do that. I couldn't only assume the Delvers can do just a so much more extreme version of that, and maybe like the illusions inside the Delver mazes are those, and like everyone could see those, right?
I think that is true about the Delvers, but the nowhere does make it so non-Cytonics can be affected by Cytonic abilities.
Yeah, true. Yeah, for sure.
So it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
I also wonder if, like, the fact that Jorgen has this non-standard ability that people think, no, shouldn't be able to do that. I wonder if that could have ever been the case before the Delvers went into the nowhere, or whether the Delvers being there is kind of either creating new powers because that's what they are able to do, or twisting powers that already exist to allow for these different aberrations of them that shouldn't be possible, but now are.
That's a very cool idea. I think I'd say I would sell that idea. I don't buy it, but it is very cool.
I think that we know different Cytonics have differing strengths at differing abilities.
Yeah.
That I could see it just being a matter of strength.
Yeah.
Of most Cytonics can only make illusions appear in the two other Cytonics because there's like a lower threshold. But there might be like one or two Cytonics out there that can just do illusions to everyone.
That's probably true. Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense even with what, different Cytonics can make mind blades better than they can.
Yeah.
There are those Cytonics that can make illusions.
Yeah.
I do love the idea that like the illusions within the Delver maze are just the illusion power, and the Delvers are just so strong that everyone sees them.
Which
like that is such a cool idea.
Really begs the question of how that Delver maze did it. But did they create projectors to do that in Starsight?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
In the test maze, there was projectors.
Okay, cool. Great.
Actually,
it was completely mundane.
Okay, great.
Light.
Perfect. I was just like, wait, but how did they do that then? But
because we can see this with Moriyama, where Moriyama saw the one illusion because that's how it was being projected in the training maze. But once you got into the actual Delver, 2 brains, 2 Cytonic.
Yeah. Woo. We cracked a world building thing here, everyone. Nice. Which is good because a lot of this world building is very loosey-goosey. So, but like that actually makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. We find out in this book that Cytonics are created by the nowhere leaking into the somewhere, and that is why Cytonics exist, and also that there is more human Cytonics, I think. Like humans are more likely to be Cytonic than other races.
I don't know if like humans being more likely it was in this book, but it's definitely been mentioned somewhere else, like in Starsight or something.
I feel like that was elsewhere.
Okay.
But it is true.
That's definitely
this
a true
book,
thing.
It was that they emerged earlier than we thought. Because Jason thought he was the first.
Yeah.
He was the first to become aware of his powers.
Yeah.
May or may not have been the first.
Like
but then he discovers like, oh no, there were ancient humans, some of them in Japan, I guess, that had made contact with the galactic community.
Yeah. Speaking of Japan and, the Kitsen, are the Kitsen just in the nowhere? Like, I was a bit confused with like Evershore in this book because they're stuck in the nowhere and they can't get out. But I guess it would have been nice to have some sort of reference in this book that like maybe there's Kitson around, but because Cytonic was written before Evershore, that wasn't possible.
Yeah. I don't think they're stuck in the portal.
Yeah.
They got locked behind the portal to the somewhere, and they closed the portal to the nowhere, so nothing could come from that direction. So they were in the portal.
It
that
is
somehow
weird.
has space.
It's kind of interesting that they all got kind of sucked into the portal from the somewhere, but that doesn't happen from the other side. Like they're just locked on the other side.
I gotta be honest, the portals are extremely weird to me. I don't really.
Yeah.
A, they're portals. B, they can contain memories. Okay, and they have the weird markings. Okay, what's going on with the Tridus and the weird markings? You know, I don't get it. It's very strange to me.
I'm very excited to get more lore about the portals. They fascinate me.
Yeah.
I've wanted to know more about them since the first book.
Yeah.
When we got all the writing and it's like, what's the writing? What how does it connect to everything?
Yeah.
Because the thing with the Kitson Cytonics is that it wasn't an existing portal. They made the portal.
Oh, did they?
I'm pretty sure.
You did say that in the Skyward Flight episodes. I admit I don't remember this at all.
For some reason, I thought the portal just appeared. But maybe I'm wrong.
I don't remember.
Yeah, so
I remember.
my thought is they made the portal, they ripped a hole into nowhere, got sucked in, which is how they got sucked in. And then the portal closed behind them. They didn't know how to open it from that side.
Yeah.
And then they quickly on the other side closed that end of the portal so they couldn't be attacked by whatever's floating around in the nowhere, because who knows what's floating around in the nowhere.
Yeah.
You know what's a bit odd? So in our last lore episode, I think we got confused as to how there would be no more Kits and Cytonics if they all got locked in the portal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this, we have it so there were a lot of ancient Cytonics and they all disappeared. And it took a really long time for us to like get more Cytonics again. So I think what's happening is, I guess, this nowhere radiation leaking out. It's pretty rare to actually make a Cytonic, but then it's passed down through the generations, right? Because it is genetic, at least in humans.
Yeah.
We don't know about the other races. Yeah. And so I guess if you just kill all the Cytonics, then you have to wait for like the random chance of it, I guess. But
or
like at least it's
really weak.
Or really weak. Yeah.
Yeah, and it needs to you need to get to a certain amount of radiation before you actually start manifesting powers. But you probably can't do that in one lifetime, so it does get passed down by generations. And then those people get more and more, and then eventually
and then you
get
hit the threshold of Cytonicness.
Yeah.
I still don't like this. Because I feel like they're, even with, you kill all the Cytonics.
Yeah.
But presumably some of them have already had kids.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, probably.
Which...
Yeah.
Unless you're killing babies.
Well, let's not go there. But if a Cytonic has kids, are all of their kids Cytonic?
I think not necessarily, but yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So can Cytonic has a kid who is not Cytonic. They have a kid.
Yeah.
They could still be Cytonic.
Yeah.
They have the genetic potential.
Yeah.
So there should still be a genetic potential for Cytonics, even if you wipe out the entire living population of Cytonics.
That is true.
I agree with everything you just said, Ian. I'm just saying the ancient Cytonics being gone for a really long time is congruous with or it does make sense given that also happened with the Kitsen, right? But I agree. Like, it's consistent in that, I guess if you just get rid of the Cytonics, it'll just take a while, I guess. I agree that doesn't really make sense to me, though, Ian. I just want to say that I agree with you.
Like, it's more plausible to me for the humans that all the Cytonics died, and then Cytonics continued to be born that didn't know they were Cytonics.
Yeah.
That seems plausible. Nobody on Earth knew what Cytonics was anymore. Doesn't make sense on Evershore because the Kitsen know what Cytonics is.
Yeah.
After the Cytonics bugger off. Doesn't make sense.
These are all great points, for sure.
Yeah.
I have opinion. Last episode was Jessie rants. This is Ian rants.
That's incredibly shocking that Jess would have character rants and you would have lore rants.
Speaking of portals, we get the mention of the portal to Earth. The last one in the Path of Elders.
Yeah, what the hell?
Is meant to be the portal to us.
Maybe
that seems like the carrot on the stick baiting. It's like, this is gonna come up. Don't worry, guys. We're just gonna put this in front of you, and you're gonna have to wait. But
Earth?
It's gonna come up.
What happened with old Earth?
We have to know what happens to Earth. It just disappeared, and now we have a portal that's meant to go to it. So it doesn't really matter where it is because the portal should go there anyway.
True.
So we have to go through the portal.
But like the portals, though,
eventually, when we figure out how to unlock it.
I'm so confused.
But does it have to be unlocked from the other side?
Oh,
it's a very good question. Yeah, that's a very good question.
I don't understand why all these portals are locked, and I'm very confused with all that, honestly. I don't get it. So I need more about the portals because I'm kind of confused. Like, what?
Particularly because the superiority ones aren't locked, which to me kind of comes across as the superiority know how to lock the portals and have just gone around and locked all the portals.
How could they possibly lock all the portals though, including an Old Earth one? Like, what?
Yeah.
Well, if they go into the nowhere, then they can just find all the portals and go through.
I guess.
I don't know what happens then to that person. I guess they just die wherever they end up.
Yeah.
But they can lock the portals.
If they can hyper jump, they can just hyper jump away.
Oh yeah, that's true. Just send the Cytonic. Yeah.
Right. They're Cytonics. Yeah. They can hyper jump.
And the Cytonic is probably how it gets locked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they figure out how to unlock them, which might also be the case.
Yeah.
Or neither, and it's just those portals never got locked. So those are the portals the superiority uses.
Yeah. They just went around and figured out which ones they could use. Because it doesn't really matter where you are, right? To get the Acclivity Stone.
I think I'm super confused about the portal that Spencer went into, honestly. I gotta be honest. That's the weirdest portal. I don't really understand. Because it's not like there's a superiority base. They're just we're just throwing them there. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Wait, the one at the beginning, you mean?
Yeah, at the end of Starsight that Spencer goes into. Yeah.
And it's the black ball.
Yeah, because that's not how the Kitsen one is.
We've never seen one look like that before. Yeah. They all
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
weird.
know.
Maybe they were able to make the portal.
That's about the only thing that makes sense is that it's a man-made portal.
I don't think I don't know if that's actually possible.
I mean, the Kitsen did it. I'm
okay.
doubling down on that.
Okay. I need answers about portals, I think, because I think they're very weird and just. Am I missing something that in Starsight they were bringing Acclivity Stone through that portal that Spencer went into? Am I just making that up, or did Mbot just comment, "Oh yeah, that's where you get the Acclivity Stone from"?
I don't think we saw anything coming out of that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think we only saw exiles going in.
Okay.
Yeah. I kind of got the impression that the one that is at Shorehold probably goes to Starside or goes somewhere near Starside.
It goes to an important superiority place. I don't know if necessarily Starside, but yeah, I absolutely agree. Some superiority stronghold or like the Dione homeworld or some crap like that. Maybe, I don't know.
Something like that.
Monodrone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because we did get that name. Is anyone else surprised that Spears was a Cytonic? Because that kind of was surprising to me.
Not at all.
Yeah, no.
That makes complete sense to me.
I guess I just thought Spears had a slug. I didn't think he was a Cytonic.
I got the impression that he was a Cytonic that could not hyperjump. And that is why he was looking for the slugs.
Okay. I guess I just didn't have... Yeah, okay. Yeah. That makes sense. I was just actually surprised that he was a Cytonic, actually. For whatever reason. But I don't remember where he went. I guess he went through the Norwell portal on Detritus.
Yeah, it wasn't ever clear. Like, Mbot crashed and he left. And that was all we got until this book. And then it's like, oh, Commander Spears is here.
Yeah.
So he must have just fallen through the portal.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, it's not like reading Skyward, I thought he was Cytonic. It's just, I'm unsurprised by him being Cytonic.
Yeah.
I was surprised. Thought it was weird. I thought he was just a guy, but also interesting that Mbot says that when he was built, he was about 3 centuries ahead of its time. So Mbot and his technology still interesting and weird, and I still want more information on it. Just wanted to point that out there.
Tell us more about Figment tech.
Figment tech.
Figments.
Yeah.
The only time we got Figments in this was Spencer being, maybe that ship is a Figment, and it is actually Hesha. It would make so much sense if it was a Figment. I also didn't remember Long Life was a Cytonic ability, but then I do remember that Jason had a really long life. So I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But it's just not one we encountered before this book, really, and they don't really talk about.
Makes sense to me that that's a Cytonic ability. I was like, okay, yeah.
How are we going to have Brandon writing about Magic Immortals? It's his favorite thing. He's got to just build that into the power set, right? Easy.
Does beg the question of different Cytonics have strengths and different abilities. Yeah. How do you train Long Life?
I guess you don't. Must just be an innate ability.
Yeah.
If you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't.
Sucks not to have it.
Yeah. It is interesting though that, like, I can't remember exactly what age he was presented as, but he was like presented as an older person, right? Like
50s.
40s, 50s, yeah. So he still had to age up to there. So do people just stop aging at some point? Or was it because he entered the nowhere at that point that he didn't physically continue to age? Can you choose when you stop to age? Can you turn it on and off? I don't like being 20 anymore. I'm going to wait till I'm 30.
We don't know how old he looked when he entered the nowhere. Yeah. Because he could have entered looking in his 20s.
Yeah.
And then over 170, close to 170 years, like he eventually got to 50s. Because you still do age in the nowhere.
Yeah. Did Chet as Spears say that he was a pretty untrained Cytonic?
I think so.
I think that was right.
I think so.
So maybe it took him a while to figure it out. Yes.
That might also just be Chet lying.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. It's hard to attribute much to definitively what Commander Spears definitely did and didn't do, I think.
Yeah.
I also find it interesting that Jason actually died. That's kind of interesting. But
or at least the AI thinks he died.
Oh,
right.
We don't see a body.
He's in the nowhere, actually. He's sucked into the nowhere portal where weird Cytonic stuff happens.
Commander Spears is Jason.
God.
I do find it interesting that the AI ball thing was able to get back into the nowhere.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Like how
did
that
they just
happened.
go up to somebody and say like, "Hey, can you please open the nowhere portal so I can?"
Maybe it was a black sphere that it got sucked inside.
I feel like it went through by itself. Like
Yeah.
it was able to just get through.
So AIs are Cytonics.
Well, I mean, they are, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they have such
that's fair.
I mean, so
yeah.
oh, okay. So the AI, the timeline's a little fuzzy because Jason goes in with the AI, but then Chet at the end said that we'd only really been alive for like 3 days, really.
Yeah, right? There were trips in and out.
Yeah.
So
with
like
the AI,
it was starting to become aware. And then Jason died, and then the AI went back in. I don't necessarily think the AI needed to have Cytonic abilities to go in, because again, if you just have the giant black sphere, you can just get in there just fine and suck yourself in there. So yeah, it doesn't need to be a mystery necessarily. But the AI could have Cytonic abilities at that time, potentially.
Yeah, because it says that I don't have the actual quote, but Chet says at one point that it took quite a while for the AIs to become sapient.
Yeah.
And they needed to be in the nowhere for that. So it was probably quite a big time difference between that first Jason entry and then like the one with the AI.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the AI was only alive for a couple of days makes me think that something happened to Jason. Like, he didn't just die of old age.
Yeah.
Like, somebody killed him or there was a fight.
Yeah.
But like that small time frame is just, it's way too small for it to feel like a natural thing killed Jason.
It's convenient. It's very convenient.
Yeah, it's very convenient.
And Chet said, he had long life, but he could be killed with any number of means out in the regular world, right? I mean, this is first human wartime, right? Jason is obviously an extremely important person during the first human war, because if you read Defending Elysium, he is facilitating a lot of hypercalls, like just all the time, right? He would be a very important target of interest there. And we know this had to be first human war because the Delvers appeared at the end of the first human war, right? So this is at least during that time. So I mean, some aliens could have just gone and killed him, I guess. And they just found him.
It is interesting that the AI went into the nowhere, duplicated itself, and like the light burst started creating itself because they didn't want to do anything and say, like, kind of trapped in time. But then they do appear in the somewhere at the end of the war. I wonder how that happened.
Probably the same way they got in.
But why would they leave? That, like, they don't want anything to happen. They don't want the somewhere to infiltrate the nowhere. They don't want to be in the somewhere. So it's the question.
It's the first time those annoying insects started bothering them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But would they actually go to the somewhere again to try and annihilate them?
I think so. Because they go do it, then they find out it doesn't really help. So that's why they kind of stop going further unless something big happens.
Yeah.
But I think the first time the annoyance really starts getting to them, I think they would absolutely go.
And I think because they locked all the memories away, they don't really understand exactly what that is anyway, right? It's just annoying insect, don't like, get them out of there, you know?
I do wonder if it was a braid type situation at the end of Starsight where someone from somewhere is a Cytonic, figures out that there's these entities in the nowhere and tries to pull them out to help on one side or the other, and the Delvers don't understand. They just start killing everything.
I mean, I can only imagine the first time that the Delvers have just gotten into the light burst and are making the light burst grow. Other Cytonics exist. They hyper jump and they're like, what are these eyes? Like, that's not good. And then they keep hyper jumping like just like usual. And the Delvers are like, no. And
getting more and more pissed off.
And yeah, there could have been a lot of Cytonics, and the Delvers don't understand, and they're just like, nope. We're out of here. Terrifying.
Yeah, that would be terrifying. Like, for an experienced Cytonic who has spent decades hyper jumping through this black void, and then there's suddenly eyes. Like,
yeah,
this isn't good.
Like, honestly, probably within the year, the Delvers are in the subway destroying things. Like, there's just no way any density of Cytonics doing any jumps through there don't piss off the Delvers enough to be like, no, we're not doing this.
That means the nowhere forgetting yourself thing is also a very recent development.
Yeah.
Cosmologically.
Yeah.
So it's interesting there aren't records that it was a new thing. Or I suppose Superiority probably has records and they just don't tell people because why would they?
Yeah.
Well, and also I think there's an aspect to, if you have your entire society built on wireless communication, the first Delvers coming in to destroy things probably were super bad. So that probably destroys a lot of just institutional knowledge, even more than like blowing up the people who crashed on detritus, right? Like the society is really damaged at that point.
Because when did the superiority even get founded? Because I think the superiority existed.
There was like the peaceful civilizations. It might not have been the superiority, but the whole idea of the superiority existed when Jason first contacted other aliens.
Certainly the idea in Defending Elysium like still had that sort of superiority-ish idea of keeping the peace at all costs, right? Like, so that is similar.
That's kind of why the first human war happened, is because the humans didn't want to be in this like peaceful, you can't have weapons or things like that.
They're like, okay,
and like they were against it. So
like it had. I think I've read Defending Elysium once, and it was immediately after reading Skyward for the first time. But the impression I always had was it was more a consortium of races, not a unified government.
I don't think you would formally call that the superiority for sure, but a lot of those cultural things definitely existed, right?
Yeah, it's the cultural norm of like, you lock up or kill all of your violent people.
Probably the superiority really came into being once they had the Tanx and they knew how to use them, right? Because that's how this government stays in power with the control of information. It's like, hey, we can do it safely without the Delvers, guys. Isn't that pretty sweet? You know?
And the threat of humans running around the galaxy
helps too.
Hey, why don't we all formally band together against the human scourge?
I wonder if they specifically started looking for ways to create something like the superiority either during the first human war or after it, knowing that the humans were there and they might have to protect themselves from the humans. So what could they do to make themselves stronger? And then they find the Tanx.
At some point. Man, I want a story set where the eyes come for the first time and just wreck everything. That sounds amazing to me. Just how despondent and destructive, or like just like in the decades after, just how different society is and things. Like, I think that would be really cool, because though I do think in Cytonic, the Delvers are redeemed a lot in my eyes compared with Starsight.
Yeah.
The whole no wireless communication thing really hasn't mattered in the series, right? Like,
yeah.
And so it would have been cool to have something where that did matter. And just seeing
Isn't that kind of the premise of Battlestar Galactica?
100%, yes. Yes, it's every time I started reading Skyward and they start talking about no wireless communication, I'm like, ooh, it's like Battlestar Galactica. I love it. I love Battlestar Galactica.
As someone who has only ever watched the old Battlestar Galactica, I don't remember that.
I would recommend.
But also, like the old Battlestar Galactica and the new Battlestar Galactica, very different.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I would recommend watching the new one, knowing that the ending is terrible, but like, there's some great stuff that happens, even in the last season.
Mm-hmm.
Really feels like not the show for me if I'm an ending focused person.
That's fair.
I think you would like it if we got to the point that I got to in the last season before I had to move and I couldn't watch it anymore.
Sure.
Because if it had ended there, oh, it would have been so good.
Yeah. I do. Well, we don't need to talk about it here. Do you have any other thoughts? Anyone?
The other thing that I kind of want to know is at what point did the superiority, not human side of things figure out the inside of the Delver maze? Because they clearly know everything up until at least the room where there's air you can get out and things like that. And they know that there's the hole there. So clearly people have gone in and out. And is it because there's this one that they have? Is that a dead Delver? Is that something they made because someone made it in and out? I want to know that.
I want to know about the dead Delver for sure. Yes. That's.
I kind of want to say
it has to be a dead Delver because it has a portal in it.
I kind of want to say the humans figured it out first because, of course, the humans would be stupid enough to do that. And it just information leaks.
Yeah.
I don't think the superiority figured that out for themselves.
Yeah. Thinking of the training maze in our Starsight episodes, we were talking about whether it was a dead Delver or not. The fact that it's got the writing in it at some point, and we now know that is associated with the portals. Like that comes from people putting memories into the portals. I think that means it has to be a dead Delver.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Right.
Which is so cool. That means that someone killed a Delver in the somewhere, and now they just have the shell.
Probably the humans did
that story.
Yeah. I'm assuming humans did it.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of Delver stories that I think are maybe honestly a bit cooler than some of the books we got here in the series in my mind, but maybe not.
I could definitely see the humans being the ones to do it, and then they get too cocky about it, and that's why they're like, oh, we can weaponize the Delvers because we know how to kill them. And that goes very badly.
I think that's very plausible, in fact.
Yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts?
No.
Stay tuned for Defiant soon, where we'll get this conclusion and see how that goes. See what questions are answered. And that's exciting.
Thank you for watching. You can find us at 17thchart.com for all the news, discussion, theories, and fun you could ever want. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud. You can leave us a review on iTunes. You can subscribe on YouTube, and you can also support us on Patreon. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.